when they were 5-5.
Now, we didn't talk
Earlier
about
in
it.
the
We
year.
said make some noise. I set the criteria as championship game.
Because that's how that works. I say something and then you tell me what I meant. That's how that works. And then that's the law. Pop, ripping the go juice to start the pod. Nice squeaky lid. That's good for the production. When you finish your beverage, how you doing over there, Pop?
You started like prematurely. I was taking a sip of my water.
All right, you ready? And you went like that. And
I know you're a little bit salty about the picks this weekend, but come on, son.
Man. Tough weekend on the picks. I don't know if we're having
not really.
That
you went 3 or 4, but
yeah, so pretty good weekend for the picks. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a little disappointed about my Bills. Your boy, Pat Mahomes. God's favorite, man. He's God's favorite. Tyler Bass squeezes that field goal at the end of the game. We'll get into that. We're going to do a react to all this weekend's games. But, man, I saw – go ahead.
I got trouble with that statement. Kansas City played a heck of a football game, and if they don't fumble the ball on the goal line, we're not even talking about that field goal. So I don't like the idea.
That's a major mistake.
They lucked into a win.
I don't
agree with that.
Mistake. Fumbling the ball.
The Bills need to get a better field goal kicker.
I agree with you on that. I think Bass is out of a job. But man, what a great weekend of games.
Yeah, I agree.
We had 3 of the 4 were super close. Ravens Texans obviously was a blowout. Lamar's just a stud. Nothing more to say there. And it just kind of got to a point where I think those are just 2 teams in very different positions right now. The Texans I think the Texans will be there in 2 or 3 years if they keep building the right way and Stroud continues on that track. But the Ravens are already there. The Ravens are where the Texans hope to be. They're just the pure class of the NFL there. And then you have the 49ers-Packers game. It was super close, pretty much back and forth the whole way. I was out of office, so I was kind of checking scores remotely when I could. And I know you were doing a little bit of traveling and moving around as well. But at the end of the day, McCaffrey goes for 98.
Back off the lamb.
He's back off the lamb.
Back off the lamb. I'm doing okay, people. In case
FBI's backed off, thankfully. They found nothing because there's nothing to find. But obviously McCaffrey with 2 touchdowns in that game, kind of star of the show there. Jordan Love played a really good game until that last interception as well.
Yeah, McCaffrey is just so good.
Yeah, and funnily enough with that game, I think that's pretty similar to Ravens-Texans where it's like 2 teams just in very different positions. 49ers almost being like the Ravens and the Packers almost being like the Texans. Like you have the young team that got hot at the right time, and then you got the team of vets that are just we knew they were going to be here at the beginning of the season kind of situation. And then 2 teams you did not know were going to be there. You had Lions-Bucks face off this morning. That was a great game. That was super, even though the score may not indicate it at the end. It was competitive for most of the game until the Lions pulled away. Goff was just dialed in. I mean, Goff was super smart.
Ben Johnson.
Yeah, Ben Johnson with a hell of a game plan. And say what you want about game managing quarterbacks, but Goff did everything he had to do to consistently put that team in a position to win, which I would argue is the job of the quarterback. And that rushing attack in Detroit is lethal, too. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are
a quarterback that executes the offense the way Goff does. I don't like putting that game manager tag on him. I think he's just got a coach that's developed him and given him confidence, and he deserves his kudos for sure.
Yeah, and I mean to just look at where Goff was. We can take a second here. This is the react segment, right? To look at where Goff was leaving the Rams. You're going, this guy's a total bust. He was the punchline of bad quarterback jokes, right? And then he gets to Detroit. And I remember when Detroit traded Stafford and they took Goff and they said they were going to roll with Goff. I remember we were all kind of laughing at it. We were like, oh my God, the Lions always suck. Now they got Goff. They're going to be even worse, blah, blah, blah. And for Ben Johnson to develop Goff and turn things around with Goff the way that he has, and to turn him into the Jared Goff that was drafted number 2 or number 3 overall, top
number
5.
one.
I can't remember. Number 1. Wow. To turn him into that guy says a lot about the coaching staff there, says a lot about the way we view and evaluate quarterbacks in the NFL. And you saw the same thing on the opposite side of the football with Baker Mayfield. Also number 1 overall, bounced around the NFL, was a punchline for a while, was, doing too many commercials and not winning enough games. And he seems to have just found his home in Tampa Bay. And he's a baller, man. Baker is balling.
Did the Browns make a mistake picking Deshaun over Baker? I was kind of 100%. Talking about that with the Ravens insider today.
100%. For what they had to pay for Watson, and for Watson coming off of 2 years of not playing, and for the way Watson is playing now, I mean, Watson has been awful for the past 2 seasons. He's hurt. They're going to have to pay him $70 million, not to mention all the off-field stuff that just has to hang over that team nonstop. What are you doing? What are you doing? It's ridiculous. I'm very grateful that Dan Snyder made us such a horrible landing spot that he was never going to come here, thankfully.
That's right.
But, yeah, heck of a game there with Lions-Bucks, and then, of course, Chiefs-Bills. The pièce de résistance. The best of the best. It's the kind of game you wait all year for. It's the kind of game you order wings for. You just can't get enough of it. It's so good. It's just the best. It's why we watch the sport, right?
Yeah.
How you feeling, Pop? I set everything up. Let the people know your thoughts on the games and where you're at.
Yeah, I mean, I think you summed it up great in terms of the first few games there. I think that Ravens pulled away. I think Lions kind of pulled away. Clearly the better teams there. It was a dominant second half by the Ravens. It was kind of dicey at halftime there. I think the Ravens insider was sweating it on his trip back. But,
Definitely.
And, 49ers Packers, that was surprising. It really looked like the Packers were going to win that game for the longest time. And give credit where credit is due. I don't think it was Brock's best game, but give him credit for engineering that last drive.
Sure.
In terrible weather. So you got to give him kudos for that. And then, like you said, just the game of the weekend, we end it. We're fresh off of it doing this post-game pod. Chiefs Bills. And Pop put a little bit of Scott Ohl on a parlay that required the Chiefs to win that game. And I'm glad to say I hit pretty big this evening. Not talking major dollars, not major units bet, but I did a 10-1 on what I bet. More than that, like a 12-1 on what I bet. So
there it is.
That was pretty nice. I'm pretty happy at this moment. But my personal take, that game went according to script. Man, the champions pulled it out. They got the benefit of a missed field goal at the end there. But their defense also bowed up and forced a long field goal. They had a fumble on the goal line where that game was just about to be put out of reach. I think some of those times Andy Reid with those trick plays when you got Pacheco in the backfield, I had flashbacks to Eric Bieniemy calling plays. It was like, what are you doing, dude? Pacheco's dominating. Just hand him the ball. But I thought the Chiefs deserve that win. I don't want to hear from, people thinking that they're blessed or luck. They got Pat Mahomes and Mahomes again. I think solidified himself, and they've got a good defense and a good run game as well. That's a good overall, really good team, and Ravens better come ready to play next week.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, at the end of the day, you got 15, and you got Andy Reid, and you got Pacheco running the ball. Everybody wants to talk about the defense this year with the Chiefs, which I think rightfully so is the headline. But the way Pacheco can keep opposing teams honest on the ground that's a huge factor, because Kansas City's never had a consistent run game before Pacheco. And it wasn't even until about halfway through the year last year that he started to come on. Late in the season, he wasn't getting carries for most of the year. 7th round guy. Right?
Yep.
But Pacheco has in games like tonight where the Buffalo's game plan, which I think was a great game plan, was clearly control time of possession, keep everything underneath, manage the game, don't have Josh Allen making crazy plays, and keep the ball out of Pat Mahomes' hands as much as possible. They're able to respond to that with the run game as well with Pacheco and keep the opposing defenses honest. I agree with you. There's no all these. I mean, what are we doing putting the ball in Mecole Hardman's hands when you can get a touchdown to ice it? And Hardman, who just came on, by the way, for the injured Rashee Rice. I mean, this guy was sitting on the bench. He couldn't get on the field with the Jets. And we're going to put the ball in his hands.
That might be a good opportunity to run a bit of a misdirection, but then just hand it to Pacheco, right?
Run a counter.
Right, yeah. I mean, or get it to Kelsey, who seemed to, like you said, I forget your quote on Twitter, but
was load managing.
Load managing all season. He rested up for this game.
Yep, that was the
legs were strong.
That was the same Travis Kelce who got me last place in fantasy football. So thanks, Travis.
Well, but that was always my take on the Chiefs, right? They were going to show up when it counted. And they still got championship caliber players and a better defense. And I think, Pacheco is a guy that's been coming on and is starting to reach the peak of his powers. This is a dangerous team. They're defending champs.
Especially if Rashee Rice can get right and be healthy. He's another guy that's been kind of coming on and has been starting to spread defenses out a little bit. All of a sudden, you got a wide receiver that can burn you. You got a tight end that can burn you. You got run game that can burn you. It starts to open up a lot. And, like you said, I mean, look, if I was a Ravens fan, I would much rather the Bills have won that game. You don't want to see the Chiefs.
I tend to agree.
In the AFC
I was actually having that debate with our Ravens insider, and we were kind of saying it was a flip of the coin. But now that I've watched the game, I just think the Bills just for whatever reason don't win these games.
You saw balls going.
And it's a shame because it does come down to a field goal kicker. That game could go to overtime. Anything could happen. Yeah. But for whatever reason, they just don't win these games, this Bills team. And I think, if you look at it, if you're the Chiefs, you're as crazy as it is to say, given their Super Bowl champs, they're kind of playing with house money. They're going into Baltimore. They're going to be underdogs most likely. They're going to have a bit of a chip on their shoulder because of that, which I think they played with a chip on their shoulder today. We'll see. We'll get in our picks this week, but that's an interesting one. I've been riding with the Ravens. I'll most likely continue to do that, but I love me some Chiefs. I'm going to admit it. I love me some Chiefs.
Yeah, I'll one more point about the Bills, and then I think I'm ready to wrap it up on the game recaps here. But I think the Bills are just missing a dog on offense. And say what you will, I'm a big fan of Steph Diggs. I invest a lot into him in fantasy football every year. But Steph just disappears right around Thanksgiving every year. He just puts on a disappearing act, and they don't have that Travis Kelce. They don't have that Isaiah Pacheco on offense next to Allen. They need something. I mean, look, throwing these deep balls to Khalil Shakir is just not going to get it done. And you watch. I mean, that deep ball went through Diggs' hands. Through his hands. You got to catch it. And that's a guy that I'll argue till we're blue in the face. Skill-wise, that's a top 3 to top 5 receiver in the NFL. You got to catch that ball. And you just see him. He disappears. They don't have that dog on offense to help out Josh Allen. And then they put Allen in a position where he's got to stand on his head. And you saw that's what he did against Pittsburgh, and they won the game handsomely. But you run up against a good enough team that's not going to let Allen stand on his head, and you reach an impasse. And I think they played a really good game. I think they were right there, and I think they had a couple unlucky breaks with the missed field goal. That deep ball, there was one incompletion that was like super close. It just barely touched the ground. The guy had his hands under it, but the ball just kind of rolled a little forward. You had a couple moments like that. But that's how it goes. I agree with you. I think Kansas City at the end of the day was the better team. I think the margin's a little tighter than you're saying it, but we can agree to disagree on that. And I'm more than anything, I'm just psyched for next week. But I think that's it.
The important question is, did the Bills make some noise?
Absolutely.
My criteria was they had to go to the championship game to qualify. That was my criteria.
Compared to your expectations and everybody's expectations for the Bills, at the time of that recording, which was week 17, they weren't even guaranteed to make the playoffs. For them to make the playoffs, run over the Steelers, and then take the Chiefs to this far, I think it's exceeded their expectations for what they were when they were 5-5.
Now, we didn't talk about it. We said make some noise. I set the criteria as championship game.
Because that's how that works. I say something and then you tell me what I meant. That's how that works. And then that's the law. Makes a lot of sense. I feel confident in what I said. I think the Bills showed up.
I'll give it to you.
To the pick that I made.
I'm messing with you. I think
I know
the way they played the game this time. I'll give it to you. That was a good call by you. Could have went either way. They made some noise, but unfortunately, they can make all the noise they want from their couch next week. Nobody's going to hear them. I mean, I think just quickly on Diggs, I think it's hard to be a dominant player at his size. I mean, Tyreek Hill can do it, but not many can. I think I agree with you. They need someone to complement him, and I think you'd see him shine if he gets a bit more help. Anyway, we got a Sauce Award. Who do you think, real quick, should be the outstanding player from this weekend? Got to go Lamar, right?
Yeah, Lamar. McCaffrey,
4 touchdowns total. He's 2 rushing, 2 throwing.
Yeah, you gotta go. You gotta go Lamar. And I think my honorable mentions personally would be McCaffrey and Goff.
No Mahomes. No Pat. No love for Pat.
So Pat did what he had to do today. Pat didn't stand on his head the way Pat does. Pat was managing the game, in my opinion, which is what he had to do. But I didn't see. I mean, 17 for 23 and 215 with 2 touchdown passes?
Just seemed he just. I agree with you. I think I agree with everything you said. He just seems in total control of that game.
Yep, I agree with you on that.
And maybe the stats don't show it, but quarterback is the point guard of a team, and just the way he ran that offense was, other than that fumble, was a beautiful thing to watch today. And he showed why he's the best quarterback in the league.
Yeah, and he's shown that, it's showing growth for Pat too, because earlier when he wasn't able to make those off-schedule plays, you'd see him start to break down a little bit. And now you see him go out there and plan A is to execute the offense. And then if I have to stand on my head, I'll stand on my head. I just think some other guys.
But if Pat is 1, Lamar is 1A, and I agree in terms of performance of the weekend, Lamar was amazing.
I think of the year.
Far and award deserving, far and away deserving of the Sauce Award.
Yeah. It's going to be a hell of a game next weekend.
Yeah, can't wait. We'll preview that during the week. All right, let's get into some Commanders talk.
Definitely. Yeah,
sorry to make y'all wait, but we had to go post-game.
So, Commanders check-in. We're going to cover a couple things here. We want to do a little bit of a coach tracker, but before we get into that, we're going to run the segment of Adam Peters buy or sell. So we're bringing back buy or sell for this Adam Peters edition. There's a few things we got to look into here, a few big names. There's obviously tons of stuff to go over, but this will be our first buy or sell segment. We may have a few more as some more rumors start to spin around. But Pop, how do you want to do this? Do you want to cue it up and then I go and then you go, or you want me to cue it up?
I'll cue it up because I got some thoughts on how to cue it up, which I haven't gone over with you. So let me cue it up.
Yeah, take it, please.
So let me just take this one. I know you're the master of ceremonies here usually, and you're much better at it than me. I will fully admit that.
Facilitator.
But I'll do that. I'll do a little of this because I'm going to switch up the last one a little bit. Okay, so the first buy or sell, and this is really just keeping on the roster or not, is Sam Howell. Do you buy or sell Sam Howell being a part of this team in 2024?
Well, yeah, why wouldn't you keep him on the roster? He's a good backup quarterback at minimum, so I guess I would buy that. It's certainly not as the starter, but buy is keeping him on the roster. Why not?
I agree. I think we both agree they need to draft a quarterback or address the quarterback position in some way, unless Adam Peters can get super creative there. But I like the idea.
Baker Mayfield,
Sam being there. I'm not. No, not Baker Mayfield. Let's not go there. I do like the idea of Sam being part of this team. I think that I still think there were some moments, some flashes there where he looked like, he had some special ability. And I still think, given the right kind of coaching, what if he was coached like Goff was coached? What could he do? And I'm not saying he's as good, but I'd like to see him on the roster. I'd like to see him compete. I think he's a good insurance policy to have there. So I'm definitely keeping Sam. I know you're going to love this next one. Do you pick up Jamin Davis, 50-year option if you're Adam Peters?
Nope.
Hard sell. Hard sell. All right.
No further comment. There's no point. I mean, he sucks. He just has not been good. Like he's been barely above average, and when he's barely above average, we go, "Oh my God, he made a flash." He's a first-round pick, and he's making flashes. I hope
totally agree.
Well invested those $80 million he got from us, and on to the next one, Jamin.
Well, you got him for another year. I mean, just don't pick up the option. So see what he does. This one's an interesting one because he made a little noise in the press towards the end of the season, said he didn't want to be part of a rebuild. Do you keep John Allen on the roster or do you sell him? Do you trade him?
Depends what you could get. I lean keep, but the problem is with his contract, he's going to want some kind of restructure situation. So if we can sell him, get something decent, and he can go restructure that contract somewhere else, I'd be in favor of that.
Yeah, I think at this point his contract is a bit of a bargain. I mean, at least for him playing up to his capabilities, which I'm not sure he really did this season. I think that's part of the reason he's making a little bit of noise because he feels like, wants more. I can't get his head and know that for sure. But I said it before. I think we got plenty of cap space. We got plenty of maneuvering. We don't really need to dump more money. I think we're still number one in the league with cap space. So I think you got to keep good players and hope that the coaching situation, coaches them up and energizes them. So I'd be leaning towards a keep with John Allen.
Yeah.
Does last one. And
I got two more here.
I'm gonna switch it up a little bit.
All right.
You have to buy one and you have to sell one. Okay. That's what's going to be down these two guys, all right? You got Antonio Gibson. Now, I think we both agree we'd probably like to keep both of them if we could.
Yeah.
But that's not the choice here. You got to buy one or sell one. Antonio Gibson, Curtis Samuel. Who do you buy? Who do you sell?
I'm buying Curtis Samuel and I'm selling Antonio Gibson, and it's not close.
Would you like to keep them both?
I'm indifferent. I think there's a lot of Antonio Gibsons running around the NFL. I'm not that's a guy that could shine in the right system. And if Ben Johnson comes in and says, "Yeah, we don't need him," fine. I'm cool with that because I'm so confident in what we have in Brian Robinson, and I like the flashes of what we've seen in Chris Rodriguez. And he's this is a third round receiver that we converted to running back. Like, you can get another guy in the draft that can fill that hole. Whereas Curtis Samuel is like top 5 in separation percentage last year. It's a very good wide receiver that was very, very, very poorly used in Washington.
All the wide receivers are poorly used. But what I loved, and I totally agree with you, so I'm not even going to repeat the point. I totally agree. I think it's a non-issue. But what I loved about Curtis, and I think I would like to keep them both, only from a point of view of not that I think AG, like you said, is anything incredible, although I think I do like him as a player. I just like the idea of if you can get him back on a good deal, maybe a 1-year deal, 2-year deal. I don't know what the market's going to be for him.
I'm cool with that.
You don't have to address the running back position. You can really focus on all the other spots on the field. So I like it from that point of view. But Curtis, I think, was super impressive of that. If you think of the team, and there was he brought it. He brought it every week. He was a professional. He did what he was asked, and he was the most consistent contributor in that receiver group. I thought his character and how he brought it, not to mention his talent. And he wasn't really even utilized as good as he could be. How many carries did he get? Which we know that's something that he could be that Swiss Army knife guy. So I agree. It would be Curtis. Why don't you take us through the coach tracker? I mean, a lot of names on here. I'll run through it real quick, and then we can maybe talk to if anything's changed, who's our favorite at this point. Maybe a favorite and runner-up.
Yeah. So a lot of names here. Ben Johnson, Lions offensive coordinator. Bobby Slowick, Texans offensive coordinator. Dan Quinn from the Cowboys DC. Raheem Morris, Rams DC. Mike McDonald, Ravens DC. Anthony Weaver, Ravens assistant coach and defensive lines coach. Eric Bieniemy, you guys all know who he is, Commanders offensive coordinator, have all been interviewed. Before we get to our picks, from what my understanding is Ben Johnson is number one, and then these are kind of left field names here, but Dan Quinn and Raheem Morris kind of tied for that
John
second.
Keim reported that.
That's what's been reported at the moment.
No one more reliable than Mr. Keim. So.
Oh my God! I mean, John Keim is like I'm trying to think of a basketball player to relate to him, but it's leaving me. But just solid. I mean, just no matter what, when you need him, John Keim is there.
Well, he's a trusted guy, right? I think he's trusted by the organization as well as the fans. Solid, but yeah, I think it's all these guys have either been interviewed. I think maybe Slowick is due to be interviewed Monday, which was probably when you're going to be watching this thing. So yeah, I mean they're being thorough, no question about it. Maybe they are waiting until they can get face to face. Obviously, they're not going to name a Ben Johnson head coach. He could be on the verge of a Super Bowl run, but I think he's established himself as a clear favorite. And I also think it's pretty interesting and telling that you don't hear his name too much associated with other teams. The only one other team that you hear fairly strongly is the Carolina Panthers, and he already rejected them once. Now, of course, they could throw an insane amount of money at him. It is his hometown.
Yeah,
but I feel like it's preordained that it's going to be Ben Johnson, and he's done nothing through this playoff run to take. And he's got to be, in my opinion, the number one choice. Like I would be so stoked, and I'd probably be disappointed if it wasn't him.
Yeah. Ben Johnson is just it's the best. It's the best he can get right now.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of what looks like there's some Mercedes, there's some Corvettes, there's some, Camaros, there's some Mustangs out on the market, and there's one Rolls Royce. And that Rolls Royce right now looks like it's Ben Johnson.
Just think about like how we felt all season long in terms of how our offense should run. And, one of our best positions offensively on the field was running back, and we didn't utilize him. And you can even throw Curtis in there, like we just talked about, with some runs. And then the development of, a 10 to 15 quarterback playing like a top 5 quarterback, at least, through the course of his career. Goff's been a 10 to 20
to 15
guy. 10 to 20 guy, probably.
20 to 30 before Ben Johnson.
And we could argue that point, but I mean, the performance he gets out of him, but then the way he uses the run game really helps that quarterback perform. And, they got some talent there on offense, but you wouldn't look at the Lions, skill positions and say they're significantly better than ours, right? I mean, Amon St. Brown is a great player. I think Brian Robinson's pretty good comp to Montgomery. We don't have anybody like Jahmyr Gibbs, but
31 other teams in the NFL don't have any. 30 Christian McCaffrey, but nobody else has Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah,
that guy's a stud.
But anyway, I think he's separated himself. But if you had to pick a consolation prize, a number 2, who do you like here? So I almost don't want to even get into it. But who would be your number 2?
Bobby Slowick would still be my number 2, purely off of the just. I really like what he's done with Stroud there. I've been on big, long rants about that. I won't waste any time tonight. But another sneaky candidate that's grown on me, I've been talked into via Mitch Tischler, is Raheem Morris. And learning more about Raheem Morris and how he's viewed around the league. If I may, there's a tweet from Jalen Ramsey here about Raheem Morris that I think is pretty reflective of him and a positive thing. There was a guy, I believe it's one of the Underdog. One of the guys from Underdog, Josh Norris, posted Les Snead's 3-minute monologue on Raheem Morris's qualifications to be hired as a head coach. The guy basically said the relationships that he has, he'll be able to hire the best staff out of anybody who's going to become a new head coach. And he said that there are going to be bordering on tampering charges because players will be texting Raheem dying to come play for him because they love the guy so much. He's just somebody that he's a great leader of men. Great leader of men. And that's the one thing we don't know about Ben Johnson yet. The one thing we don't know about Bobby Slowick yet. We know the X's and O's. We don't know the leader of men. And that's the one thing you can't coach. Look at Dan Campbell, right? What he's done. And Jalen Ramsey basically said, won't be any tampering issues, but 100% I know many players, including myself, who would love to play on whatever team Ra's the coach of. That won't necessarily be reality, but would definitely love that. Don't read too much into this.
The only thing that concerns you a little bit is he had a shot at being a head coach, and
where was that in Tampa?
I was trying to figure that out. Really, he was head coach of the Bucks.
Yeah, I mean the Bucks were
21-38.
The Bucks were a dumpster fire when he was there. I mean, they were the number 1 overall pick. They took Jameis Winston. It was right around that time, wasn't it? It was not a good. It was not a good situation.
He was interim head coach of the Falcons too, so he might have picked up some losses, at the end of a year there.
He took them over in 2009. Went 3-13. Got Jameis Winston. Turned it around 10-6 the next year. I think Jameis got hurt. 4-12 the year after that, and then he was out.
10-6 is a pretty good run, but
took over.
Yeah, maybe it looks like he didn't get a fair shot there, but it seems like from all accounts he's a solid pickup. You gotta, I'm gonna trust the process. I'm with you. Raheem was going to be someone that I was going to bring up. I'd probably go Mike McDonald as my number 2 if I had to pick one. I think that's a great pick. Generally because of Bobby Slowick. Bobby Slowick, you sure can. Yeah, Bobby Slowick, I think I'd like to see more. Ben Johnson's done it for multiple years. We haven't seen that out of Bobby yet. The league can catch up sometimes. Signs are good. I wouldn't really be crushed by any of these names. The only one that doesn't excite me, Dan Quinn. I know he went to a Super Bowl and he did some good things, and he might be all right. But anyway, at the end, I'm going to just trust the process. But hoping it's Ben Johnson. And I think it's going to be. I think all signs are pointing that way.
I think so. I think the only guy, I would say Mike McDonald would be the only guy that if we didn't go Ben Johnson, I wouldn't be disappointed. And then the next tier down would be the Slowicks or the Raheem Morris for me. I blanked on that when I was picking.
Yeah.
But let's do a quick bracket check-in, I think. Get into that. Just see where we're at after an interesting weekend here. But so Pop right now in first place with 11 points. Ravens and 49ers are his picks for next week. Ravens to win the Super Bowl. Got myself tied for second place with 10 points. Ravens and 49ers are the picks for next week. And I have the 49ers to win the Super Bowl. Got our Boston Insider next week also picking the Ravens and the 49ers and has the 49ers to win the Super Bowl. And then we have at Wilson27, longtime listener of the pod, friend of the pod, 9 points. Ravens and 49ers are the picks next week, and he has the Ravens to win the Super Bowl as well. So
unfortunately, I don't think he can win it because he and I have the exact same path to the final. So
I'm not sure.
He couldn't pass me.
I guess how this shakes out is either if Kansas City wins next weekend and then the 49ers win, then I don't know. I'm not sure how the math is going to shake out here.
It's pretty simple.
It's either if the Ravens win
the way the math works out is that if the 49ers win the Super Bowl, you and the Boston Insider will come down to points. If the Ravens win it, then I got it.
Yeah, but me and the Boston Insider have the same number of points, and we both picked the Ravens and the 49ers. So the best we can do is tie each other.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. It would come down to the score of the Super Bowl.
The final score prediction.
Yeah.
There you go. See, that's why we do it. That's why we play the game right there.
I'm the math guy.
Pop rolled his eyes.
We all have the exact same picks next week, so it's going to have to come down to the Super Bowl pick. And so if the Ravens win, I got it. If the 49ers win, it comes down to the tiebreaker between you and the Boston Insider. No prize money this year. Maybe next year if we get to 10,000 subscribers.
Maybe next year, brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, $20,000 prize pool.
Absolutely.
You guys are in control of that. You want the prize pool?
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends. Get some subscriptions going. We'll make it happen.
Get those subscriptions up.
We'll make it happen. Me and Pop a cool $250 each. We'll kick in $10,000 each for the prize pool. No problem.
No doubt about it.
Anyways, what do you say we wrap this thing up, Pop? It's been a blast as always.
Sounds good. Yeah, it was fun.
Yep, it was a great time. Guys, if you've been enjoying it, you've been with us this long, obviously, time for a little like and subscribe. You know the drill. But without further ado, let's wrap this thing up. I've been Dom.
This is Pop.
Thanks for another great week.